Morning has broken, my windows are open. Wanna feel the wind blow through my hair. Which way do I follow? What happens tomorrow? I turn to you and hope you can guide the way. Sometimes I give up, just wanna be on my own. Even in the darkest times, you give me hope. So I lean on you when I'm lost my way.
Hey y'all, welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. So today's video is a little bit different, as I'm sure you can tell. Now this is a fall tray decorate video, and that's all we're going to be doing in this video is decorating 3 different kinds of trays. I've got my small 2-tier tray that I bought from the Dollar General last year. I have my very large 2-tier tray that is farmhouse style that I got from Amazon. And I also have a flat 2-handled serving tray that is medium or moderately sized. So we are just going to be using the decorations that I already have around my home, decorated around in my home. You all have already seen these decor pieces. I'm using some of the small ones and pulling down from some of the areas just to do these trays, just to give you guys some ideas. That way, you know, if you're struggling trying to figure out how to decorate one of your trays or just an area, this may give you some ideas to get started. And we're going to start off with the small 2-tier tray, the one that I got from the Dollar General, and this is from the Dolly Parton collection. I love this little tray. It stays on my little small dining room table, and I think that it is just too adorable, and I am going to be decorating it just simply. I think all of the different ideas are totally cute. The first couple ideas I am doing in just the pink and the white. I'm wanting something cute and not something just for the fall, but something that also pulls in the spooky season. And I'm not very big on the Halloween season itself. I do allow my kids to go trick-or-treating and to enjoy Halloween. I don't like all of the darkness around the season itself. Plus my grandmother, she passed away on Halloween night. So yeah, I'm not a dark person. So Halloween is not exactly my season. But you know, spring is. I love summer as well. And of course fall. So we're going to stick with the fall decor all the way through the spooky season. But I can have a little bit of fun with a little bit of spooky season decor, but you know, just make it a little playful, like what you see here with this tray. The little candy corn with the smiley face, the little cute ghost, so on and so forth. But with the idea of the spooky season in mind, I am going to tell you guys a spooky story. It's a true story from my childhood about the house that I grew up in. So this is going to be a little bit different kind of video. Like I've said, I really hope you guys enjoy this, but I'm trying to keep it interesting. And my boys, they love hearing my stories. I don't know, and I've been told a few times that I'm a great storyteller, so we'll see about that. I don't know. But my boys do love hearing my stories, especially when they're true from way back when I was growing up. And the story that I'm going to be telling you guys, like I said, it is the house that I grew up in. I grew up in a county that didn't have any kind of stoplights. It was very, very small. Everybody knew everybody, and everybody knew everybody's business, you know. And this, we're talking mid to late 80s, all the way up into the, I'm going to say, early mid 90s. That is our timeline here for this story. I lived there until I was 11 years old, until I moved to where my parents have lived all the way up until, you know, so that would be the second home that I live in. But this is the house that I grew up in. And let me tell you, this place was very haunted. And I'll tell you the backstory to that too. Now, I do want to say before we get started with the story, just a really quick heads up on what is going on and why there's no painting in this video. Because you guys already know I had planned on painting the coffee bar table. But that had to be put off just by a week. So the next video will have that in it. But the reason is this past Wednesday, Jackson and Dominic had a dentist appointment. So, you know, they missed school that day because it was fairly early in the morning, but not too early in the morning. It was like 10:30, something like that. And it's a good 30-minute drive away from where we live. So they missed the whole school day. Of course, they were absolutely tickled about that. Well, anyway, later that afternoon, after we had got back home from the dentist appointment, Dominic was running from the bedroom into the living room, and Will had just got home from school and was charging my laptop in his bedroom. Well, usually I don't mind him doing that, but that's usually because it's at night and Dominic and Jackson's not up running around. Now, for those of you that are new, Dominic is my 5-year-old, Jackson is my soon-to-be 9-year-old, and Will is my just-turned 13-year-old. So, Dominic tripped over the cord that Will had strung across the bedroom floor. Now, it wasn't strung far, but it was strung just enough to have a little lift in the cord from the floor. Dominic tripped over that. He curled his foot. From what I'm understanding from the older boy of mine, Isaiah, which is 22, he didn't have to work that day or that evening, so he was at home. And from my understanding, all of Dominic's weight went down on his little foot. It did sprain it very badly. It was really bruised. It had a little knot that popped up at the base of his big toe. It just a mess. So he stayed home the very next day. And I figured, a night of rest, and then the day of rest, he stayed off of his foot and all of that good stuff. He'd get to go back to school by Friday. Well, that did not happen. And so by Friday, I'm planning, we're doing urgent care. Well, that didn't go as planned either because Dominic was in one of his moods and his foot was hurting and all of this other stuff. So he threw a fit. We couldn't get the x-rays. Okay. I thought, okay, so we'll take the weekend. We'll rest his foot. He won't be up jumping around and playing and stuff. He's really nursing this foot. And he doesn't get up and play along the weekend. He does rest his foot. Now, his brothers do come and play with him. And, I pack him, or his biggest brother here at home packs him around. And that way he can get where he needs to go and plays on the floor with the boys and all of that. Well, Monday comes around and I'm like, okay, bub, what do you think? You think you can go to school today? How does your foot feel? We checked it out. He got up and he was heading toward the potty so he could go potty, and he's took 3 steps, stepped on his foot wrong, jerked it straight up, and started bawling, said it was hurting. So, okay, we done urgent care again. We finally got the x-rays. Nothing is broken, but it is badly sprained. So, the doctor said that he could go back to school. I'm like, how can he go back to school? He's 5 years old. He's high-functioning autistic, for those of you that are new. So he has sensory issues along with the autism, and this one is apparently something, that is triggering that. So this is not going over well. So Tuesday rolls around, I'm like, okay, I've got to figure out something. So I make contact with his teacher at school, the principal. We get a game plan. We decide that we're bringing Dominic to school the next day. He's not going to be riding the bus because if you all have been here for a while, then you already know the boys usually are car riders. I take them and pick them up. Well, this year they decided they was wanting to ride the bus, all 3 of them. So they all 3 ride a school bus. Dominic and Jackson gets on the bus before Will. Will rides a whole different bus. So he's not able to climb the steps to the bus. So I have to take him to school. We agreed that I'm bringing him to school. So I've taken him to school the next day, and seems to be everything's going good. The teacher has kept me in the loop all day. She's texted me, let me know that he thinks that he can ride the bus, so he wants to try riding the bus home in the afternoon, and so everything's going well. But that is what has kind of put a kink in my plans to paint that coffee bar tape. So that will be in the next video. But I didn't just want to leave everyone high and dry because I was not able to do a regular routine reset or any kind of routine cleaning over the weekend because I was having to accommodate Dominic, of course. So I'm like, I have to bring you guys some kind of video. How about we decorate those trays I've been talking about, and I give you guys a true scary story, spooky story, whatever. It's true from my childhood. So let's get into that. Okay, so just a little bit of background really quick about this house. Okay, it's on a dead-end road. The road dead ends at a lake. If you go straight at the end of it, or if you turn up, there's a couple campgrounds up there. And my parents are 2 of the people out of the very few people that helped to make those campgrounds up there. But anyway, so I learned how to swim in this lake. I used to go swimming in it all the time, blah, blah, blah. This road that I lived on dead ended at this lake. And the house that I lived in was a little white 2-bedroom house, and it was a square. It was a box. This house had 2 front doors. One front door led into the living room. The other front door led into one of the bedrooms, which also had the bathroom. Now, whenever you're standing outside in front of these two front doors, there's the porch. The porch goes from one side of the house to the other side in the front. In front of the porch, there are two trees directly in front, evenly spaced, and there was a little pull-off area in between those two trees. And then if you're standing at those trees looking at the house, on the left side where the bedroom was at, that the front door one of the front doors leads into, there is also a tree at the side of the house right there. So now if you can picture this, when you walk into the front door that leads into the living room, this is the type of house that you can walk through every single room all the way around through the house. You don't have to backtrack or anything like that. You can start in the living room, walk through, and end up in the living room. So if you go into the living room and you walk straight through the living room and go through the doorway that leads into what was mine and my sister's bedroom, whenever you turn left, there's the doorway that goes into the kitchen. So you can walk from the living room to the bedroom that was mine and my sister's to the kitchen, and then you turn left again and go through that doorway, and that leads into what was my mom and dad's bedroom. And then standing at that doorway from the kitchen to the bedroom, if you went right, that led you to the bathroom. Now, I have got a really scary story about that bedroom, my mom and dad's bedroom, but we'll get into that later. Now, something to know about my sister and I. We slept with my parents all the time. We slept with my parents until, I think actually until we moved out of that house. I was a pretty big girl when I quit sleeping with my parents because I was terrified of my bedroom, which is what this story is about. Now, when we moved from this house, and the only reason we moved from it is because the owners of this house was in a really bad accident while they were driving. The man was driving. They were elderly. The man was driving. He had a heart attack. They hit a electric pole or a telephone pole or something like that. I'm not sure which. Yeah. No one walked away from that accident. It was awful, and they were such lovely people. I remember they were such lovely, caring, grandparent-like people. But whenever that happened, the house got auctioned off. We didn't know who was going to buy it. The man that did buy it, he told my mom, he was like, "You all could have stayed there. I wouldn't have raised the rent. Wouldn't have been no issue." But we didn't know. So my mom and dad found another house, which was literally just right off of this road, and neither one of these houses are there anymore. They got tore down years ago, but we only lived in that second house for a year, and then we moved back to the county that I'm actually from. Now, the county that I'm actually from, I lived there from birth until I was 3, and as I mentioned earlier, my grandmother, which is my dad's mom, she passed on Halloween night. So I was 3 years old, had just turned 3, and that's the whole reason we moved out of that county and into the county that I grew up in. Now, to the story. I have talked a little bit about how I grew up and how my dad was an alcoholic, and how my dad was a biker. I've, talked a little bit about, when I tell you that I grew up country. Like, this is, in the summertime, we left the house at daylight, come back home at nightfall. Sometimes it'd be past night. I had fields and farms all around the house that I grew up in. We had a holler, which is a road, a really, really like back road type of road. It was all gravel. It was directly in front of my house. There was a field with a barn in it that was owned by this family that lived directly across from us, just down the road a little piece, that basically watched my sister and I grow up. I used to work in tobacco when I was a very small child with my parents back then. Just, not hard stuff or anything. It wasn't crazy like that. But we're also talking, this is also the mid 80s up to the mid 90s ish. So, things were a lot different back then. But I had cornfields essentially on every side of me except for the front of this house. So to the left there was a cornfield, to the right there was a cornfield, to the back there was a cornfield. We also had ourselves a small little mini farm type of deal going on. I had a horse, I had goats, I had pigs, I had dogs, I had chickens, Anyway, so I grew up country. I grew up with an alcoholic dad who was also a biker. There was like parties all the time at my house. My mom, she worked 2 jobs, so I took care of my little sister most of the time. But my dad, he would get drunk, as an alcoholic does. And, I do love my dad, and I'm not trying to speak ill of him in any way whatsoever. This is just part of the background to this story. Now, this house, the background on this house, and I started hearing little bits and pieces about this when I was younger. After the spooky stuff started happening and I really started paying attention to what was going on, I didn't actually find out what had happened in this house until after we had moved out of it. But essentially, a man came home, found his wife with someone else. They had 2 kids. Well, the man got rid of the wife and her boyfriend and the kids inside the home. And then the significance of the trees, me telling you where the trees were at, the tree that is in the side yard beside the bedroom window, he went out and used that to end himself. So that's the background. I don't know a whole lot of details on it past that. I do know that that's what they say makes places haunted. But I'm telling you right now, inside of my closet was a portal. Now, I'm a big believer in God, and so therefore I do believe in the devil. I believe in heaven and hell, and I believe that there was a portal to hell in my closet. I was terrified of this closet. Now, during the day, I was fine. My sister and I would go in there and play. And my mother and I actually spoke about this like last summer. I was telling the story to my kids, and I was like, Mom, do you remember why I didn't like sleeping in that bedroom? She said, yeah, you always were saying that there was red eyes in the closet. And I was like, yeah, exactly. So one particular night that sticks out to me is the night that I'm going to tell you guys about that absolutely terrified me. My dad had gotten extremely inebriated. Extremely. And he was a very mean man. I mean, everybody knows this about my dad that knew my dad. He was a very mean man. And I was only about 7 years old, 6, 7 years old. I was still real little. And my sister, she was a baby still. He had put her to sleep. She was in the bed. I went to go lay down in the bed, in my parents' bed, because that's what I was used to. You know, I slept with my parents. My dad, for some reason, and I still to this day do not know why, got mad and forced me to sleep in my bed that night. Like, I cried myself to sleep with the blankets over my head, scared to death this night. And I seen 2 sets of red eyes, 2 pairs, 4 eyes altogether inside of this closet this night. It was the only night I ever seen more than 1 set of eyes, 1 pair of eyes. But this night I seen 2. I was so scared. It was insane. So anyway, my dad makes me sleep in the bed. I'm laying there and I've already got the blanket up over my head. And then I hear a really soft, low growl. And I just bring a part of the blanket down to where one eye can just barely peek out. And I see these 2 pairs of eyes. One, they're about 1 foot and 1.5 feet from the floor. And, you know, one's above the other. But one of the eyes are just a little over. And the way that the bedroom sat was, I had my bed, which was a bunk bed, sitting against the far wall directly across from this closet that was in the corner. Was shaking. I was crying. I didn't know a whole lot about praying. You know, then I knew how to pray, and I knew what a prayer was. It wasn't something that I was well versed in because I was, you know, really tiny. But, you know, I can remember saying as I'm crying, please, Daddy, please, the eyes are back in the closet. There's more eyes. And he just screams out, shut up and go to sleep. There's nothing in the closet. Shut up and go to sleep. And then like 5 minutes later, I'm guessing that he's out, completely out of it, because I don't hear any more movement coming from where he was at. And so I'm just laying there terrified. I hear that low growl. I see those 4 eyes, 2 pairs of eyes. And I'm constantly just bringing this blanket down past one or both of my eyes to look over it to see. And it's like that all the way up until the next morning. And my mom gets off very, very early in the morning from her job. I think she got home at like 5 o'clock in the morning. And she usually came in, would stay up until she got me ready for school. I'd get on the school bus. She'd take my sister to the babysitter and, you know, go about her day or whatnot. Or no, my sister didn't go to the babysitter until later in the evening before my dad got off work. That's what it was. She would do her thing. She would get her some sleep and then take my sister to the babysitter, go to work, and then, you know, all of that good stuff. My dad would be home by the time I would get home from school. But this closet, my dad would do this not real often, but occasionally he would get that inebriated to where he would be like, well, you're blah, blah, blah years old now. It's time you start sleeping in your bed. You're no longer a baby, blah, blah, blah. And that's essentially how it went. Now, I've got another one about actual heavy furniture moving that I will tell you guys about. But I'm not going to tell you guys about that story just yet, not in this video. I may actually do another video a little bit closer to Halloween and tell that story. It's a little bit more detailed. Now, something I will tell you is I wasn't the only one to see these eyes. My best friend that I grew up with, when she would come over and spend the night, most of the time we would sleep in the living room, but on the occasional night that she would be staying over, we would every now and then sleep in that bedroom. And she would wake me up or I would wake her up because, of course, the red eyes, they were in there any night that I would sleep in that bedroom. It didn't matter. And then also my cousin that my mom and dad raised, we were raised as like brother and sister, which he has his own stories about this closet and the eyes, but he saw them as well. And I'm also wanting to let you guys know why this video is up so late. I did have planned for it to be up on Wednesday, but I've been having some technical issues with my editing software that I use. Everything is fixed now, though. If there was some kind of bug that was going on in an update, it was just a mess. But I did get this video up to you guys just as soon as I possibly could, and I do have another video that I'm working on. We're going to be painting, like I said, in the next video. And as I said about the other story, I will tell you guys that I have got oodles of stories from this house that I grew up in. Like, it was insanely haunted. And the one that I'm talking about with the furniture moving, that one is just insane. And it has both of my parents in it. It was early of a morning. And then I also have another story to tell you guys, if you would like to hear it, about a time when we came home from camping and everything was open that should not be open. But because we're coming to the end of the video, I don't really have enough time. I wanted to explain why the video was up so late. I'm actually doing this outro just a few minutes before I'm uploading this video for you guys, because now that everything is straightened out and I'm going to be able to upload, I want to let you guys know what was going on. So it wasn't because, you know, any of other reason other than the fact that there was just some issues going on with my software. Now that it's all fixed, took several emails back and forth to the makers of the editing software and all of that good stuff, but we got it fixed and everything's well now. So I should have another video up at a regular time on Wednesday for you guys. But I think that's got it till next time. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I was able to give you guys some ideas for that fall decorating. And so yeah, that's got it till next time. Love y'all. Stay safe.
Stepped into my life, such a magic feeling when you tore down my walls. I wish I could go back to right before you told me I'd try to change it all. But look at us now, could have gone so far. It hurts to realize